As kingfishers catch fire, Gerard, Manley, Hopkins. As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame. As tumbled over rim in roundy wells, stones ring, like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same. Deals out that being indoors each one dwells. Selves goes itself. Myself it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. I say more. The just man justice is, keeps grace that keeps all his goings graces. Acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is. Christ. For Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through the features of men's faces. There's more than 150 years between the writing of the poem and the recording of that video. And I think they're telling us some of the same things. That's probably the God-talkiest poem I could choose as a committed atheist. It's also dense, it's pretty dense. So I want to spend a minute on it with you. I chose it because it's about you. It's about us and this community and the work that we're doing. The real strong God talk, all the Christ and the Father stuff, that's Gerard Manley Hopkins singing his own song. Good old Jerry. Sing on, my friend. And I know that language speaks to some of you more directly than it speaks to me, and to others of you not at all, but it sure spoke to Jerry. I'm happy to hear what he has to share because he shares it so beautifully. But the poem is about all of you, about us, each of us. And it carries within it a promise, a prophecy, a way forward. Again, it was written over 150 years ago, and it was written about us. And now, today, I get to share it with you. The beauty of kingfishers catching fire, of dragonflies drawing flame, the ring of a stone in a roundy well, the sound of a bell's bow swung, flinging out broad its name, the majesty, the beauty, the grandeur of nature and our place in it. It's awesome. And it all does this thing, everything in creation. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same. That's you. That's me, the mortal thing. We're a mortal thing. That's us, right? That's us. We are doing this thing, just as beautiful and just as glorious as the kingfisher at sunset, sparkling like the iridescent dragonfly, frozen above the water for a moment's regard. What is the thing that we do as beautiful as the hung bell, flinging out broad its name? And I love the answer to that question in this poem. The answer isn't submit to a divine will or sing the glories of a higher power or go forth and sin no more. It's a universalist vision, a deeply universalist vision. Each mortal thing selves. Myself, we speak and spell. To self as a verb. Wow. What would that be for you? Take just a second and reflect. If you said, I self, what does that mean for you? Now, if you answered what you're doing just by being right now, you got it right. 10 out of 10, full marks, well done. Each of us is lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not yours. And you self, and I am amazed at how uniquely and beautifully each of you selves. You are all so lovely, and I love you all, and that is why I'm up here today. I'm so lucky. I want to share with you a word a way of thinking about one another, of constructing community together that has changed my life, a constellation of prophecy that I have been lucky enough to stumble across. Now, my friend Rachel, who introduced me to this poem, she told me that she loves this poem because the notion of God loving us in limb, whether it lands for you or not, is like true in some literal sense, at least just the abstract notion of being lovely in limbs, like the way she and her husband Brian loved their child Sadie when Sadie was a small baby. To be loved like that. The way Cheryl and I loved our kids when they're small babies in the bathtub, delighting in their chubby calves, their elbows enshrouded in soft skin, their ticklish necks, hair that smells like Johnson & Johnson baby shampoo. And the way their giggles rang in our ears. Rachel was onto something when she talked about how revolutionary a vision of divine love that is. Not a love built on subservience and penitence and conformity. No. A love that says it is enough just to be as you are. More than enough to be silly and perfect and dumb and human. More than enough. In fact, instead of enough, we are each a reflection of deep and abiding divine beauty. This vision of us as not fallen or insufficient, but each an aspect of the divine. Each of us a sunset you catch for just a second in your rear view on a long drive. Each of us the roar of the waves incessant. Each of us the glint of the sun on the rain-wetted leaves, connected inherently to transcendent beauty. Every time I read that poem, I start to choke up, knowing that it's true for all the people that I know and love, and desperately wanting it to be true about me, wanting to believe it about myself. But also, the intimacy that comes with the notion that we're all regarded as beautiful in this embodied way. Such plain, tacit, so obvious it wouldn't even occur to mention it way. The giggly baby in a bathtub way. It's funny how that creates a tiny little community. It takes what could be a mundane daily task. You got a dirty kid, you got to get it clean. Right? It turns that task into a brief, beautiful break away from the mundane. A holy, silly community of maybe just the two of us. Maybe throw in a co-parent or a grandparent or a godparent who lends a hand with a dry towel, a shared sense of wonder, a silly song about having a towel dress. It's awesome. I want to tell you about one of the most awesome people I've ever met. Last summer, we went on a Disney cruise with my parents and my siblings and their families. If you've never been on a cruise, you're probably fine. A lot of people like them. A lot of people don't. But one of the things that's universal on all cruises, I think, is there's a little bit of a logistical hassle. You're essentially filling an entire hotel all at once while trying to make sure everyone is having a good time. And there's this awkward period where you can't get your stuff, you can't go to your room, and so you just kind of have to be somewhere. And if your kids get cranky or you need a nap, you're out of luck. So we got on the ship, we went to the pool deck, and there's this water slide for ages 3 and up, even little kids. It's just a basic twisty slide. It's painted gold. It's held aloft by a disembodied Mickey Mouse glove. And it descends into a long landing bay where the kids climb out, and then they hustle quickly. They're almost running, but they're not quite running, so they don't get yelled at for running. They go back to the back of the long line at the base of the steps, so they can do it again. But the thing you would have noticed if you had been there was the lifeguard at the bottom of the slide. Every single kid who went down that slide arrived at the bottom to find a beaming smile, just heartfelt applause, and very specific kid-tailored praise for whatever whoop or hand-waving, personal pizzazz, visibly overcome fear, whatever the kid brought to the table. Customized praise. Now this person, this lifeguard, he paid attention to every kid, and every single kid wants someone to watch them when they go down the slide. If you know any kids, you know their most heartfelt common plea, watch me. And that lifeguard, my friend Krish, he granted that wish wholeheartedly every single time. It was an awesome sight to behold. I watched him do his work for a few minutes, transfixed, before I introduced myself. And I let him know how impressive it all was. And it makes me happy whenever I think about it. The fact that my friend Krish, he's out there in the world. He knows how to, and he has it in him to make people feel seen. All right, is it okay with you if I share an unpopular opinion up here? I know it's being recorded and broadcast, so maybe I'll get canceled, but I'm feeling brave. I'm gonna do it anyway. There are a lot of people who lament progress, who think that humanity has fallen, that it's harder than ever to be good because of modern innovations. And there's a lot to argue in their favor. Social media can bring about some really harmful ways of being. Anonymity on the internet is not famous for helping us listen to our better angels. But I have not one doubt about this. My unpopular opinion: we live in a time where it is easier to be good than it ever has been before. And that is because people have been working really hard to figure out what it means to be good and to empower people to do it for a very long time. I have given this a lot of thought. Ever since I was little, all I wanted was to be good. And what I can tell you is humans are really, really good at being good. And Unitarian Universalism is a powerful, awesome faith because it grants us access to unfolding human ingenuity of what it is to be good. One way that people are good, that I am trying to continue to become better, is a virtue only recently articulated. There's a lot to juggle with virtue: prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, faith, hope, love, humility, charity, chastity, gratitude, patience, diligence. It's a lot. It's a lot to balance. I don't even agree with all of them, but they're there. On the other hand, it feels like maybe a dozen things might not be sufficient to cover all of human experience. Being a person is complicated. But the virtue that I've found recently that I want to share with you today is a uniquely you virtue: the virtue of awesomeness. Now, it's a word that feels maybe a little bit worn out or overused, but I want to present it to you afresh. The short version of awesomeness: when you expressively break out of the norms that govern day-to-day life, and in so doing, you create an invitation to others to join you in all of their individuality, and thus you build a community of mutually appreciative individuals. That's awesome. Express yourself and invite others to join you, and that's awesome. Paint a picture and move someone to journal about it. Chat with a stranger at a ball game. Learn about what made them a fan. Play a song and get someone dancing. We got to see some awesomeness today. We get to see it every Sunday in this awesome place. The community that we build together is awesome. And I'm not sharing this with you because I think it's great, although I do, or because it's personally meaningful to me, although it is. I am sharing it with you because I think this virtue stands at the crux of our unfolding community: our free and independent search for truth and meaning, our affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of all people. I believe that awesomeness is critical to our vision of an interconnected world of justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Awesomeness carries real promise in the foundational work of building diverse, multicultural, beloved community here together and out in the world. I'm sharing it with you because it's exactly what the people clawing away at our freedoms don't want me to do, don't want us to do. People are actively trying to dismantle years of progressive victories that have drawn the circle wider, little by little. They're trying to tell us how to raise our children, and the ways they want us to raise our children are bad. They're harmful. There are people trying to tell us that some of us don't belong, that some of us are not worthy of love for who we are, or that somebody may not deserve equal treatment under the law or the pursuit of happiness. There are people telling us that some of us have no place here. You know what my response is? Myself, I speak and spell. And this is one half of awesomeness. I know you've seen it in me. I have a hat that you may recognize in the fall. It felt like a risk to wear it the first time, but I like my hat. My hat is part of myself. I didn't used to be a jacket and tie guy, but now I am. I like to get dressed fancy. I like to sing with y'all. My voice is part of myself. I like spreadsheets. I like poetry. You can do both. In this community, y'all have been my accessory, an accessory to my quiet revolution. I have become myself here with you. But the conspiracy of awesomeness requires a collaborator. When I self, I need you to self too. I present myself to you now, not as just some guy, not as the rote performance of the mundane that it is so easy to become, but I present myself to you as a person, distinct as a rung bell, and I present myself to you as an invitation. When you accept that invitation, when you respond to me with yourself as a person, not as who I expect, but who you are, when we are co-persons together, we have exercised the virtue of awesomeness. And when we do this with everyone, when we invite each person to become and be themselves, and when we reconstruct our world, our community, our society, to create conditions such that everyone is free to figure out who they are, free to become, to embody, to fling out broad their name. This one-on-one interaction becomes the fundamental unit of a social revolution, of a community not of conformists who submit to an authoritarian creed, but a community of individuals who work alongside one another to create a world where all are valued. I say this virtue, awesomeness, is a distinctly you virtue because look at this place. This community is the most inclusive community I have in my life. We have built this building, we live stream our services, we give of our time and talent and treasure so that we can invite people in, everyone in who wants to build it with us. We want you here. And we want you to be able to bring your full self. Because if you can't, that sucks. That is not awesome. Awesomeness finds its expression in lots of forms. It can be a brief interaction in between co-people, but humans are so ingenious. Skateboarders finding out new tricks, showing them off, and then teaching them to one another. People writing rap lyrics, freestyling, or trading verses. Stand-up comics writing from their hearts and putting themselves out there. And then in response, people laugh, recognizing our beautiful, foolish selves in their art. Public art is so awesome. We have such a wonderful gallery going on right now. People sharing their vision and skill to make others' lived experience more colorful, more complex, to discover of ourselves as we engage with the art, as I recommend you do. There's a charity called Able Gamers you may have heard of. They make adaptive video game technology so that anyone who wants to play video games can play and then connect with a community of gamers. Anything that helps you become yourself, affirm that self, and then share with others in a collaboratively constructed community of individuals. This is the wellspring the cradle of creation that is awesomeness. And in the process, we get to learn things we could not know on our own. This place has given me options that might not be available to me otherwise. I am a husband and a father who doesn't need to raise my voice or engage in violence, who can take the received wisdom of spare the rod, spoil the child, and set it aside as detritus from a less wise past. Instead, I have access to the hard but happy work of loving my children and giving them the space and guidance they need to find out on their own how to be their best selves. Through this steady, generative process of unfolding creative community, of prophetic, progressive people engaged in the spirit of awesomeness, Unitarian Universalism has made space for me to be my own kind of man. This faith community has also taught me, continues to teach me, about perspectives I would not otherwise have access to. I'm a straight cis white guy to a lot of people, including my past self. That meant there wasn't much self-exploration I needed to do. Boy, was I wrong. It also meant that I would probably fail at understanding other people's perspectives. But I can feel the way that getting to share this awesome faith has worked on me. I still struggle to think clearly about it, to write about how the traumatic experiences of my ancestors has shaped my thinking and my habits in the present. But it's something I'm working on, I get to work on and think about. And that would not have happened without this awesome faith. Most importantly, the lesson of awesomeness is that people need to be able to be our authentic, true selves, to be safe and loved and cherished, for awesomeness to have ground to grow. No one sings their heart out when they're afraid they'll be made fun of. If a community makes you feel excluded, you can't, won't, and shouldn't show up open-hearted to that place. No one wants to high-five when their humanity is under threat. And that sucks. There's a significant contingent in our country, in our world, who thinks that's how it ought to be. That everyone's got a place, and they need to know their place. And if they step out of line, someone needs to let them know, needs to put them in their place. And my heart breaks for them because they live in fear that if people get to be themselves, then society will crumble. And then they come to fear themselves, try to hide themselves from themselves. And they hurt other people, and they hurt themselves. And all parties involved deserve better. And lucky for everyone, there's better out there to be had. We've got it right here for the taking. Now this faith, our faith, Unitarian Universalism, has work to do. Drawing the circle wide takes work. When the music moves us to dance together, we will sometimes dance out of rhythm. Maybe even step on each other's toes. But hey, we're dancing. This is a faith community with good bones. Our deepest values reach out to make room for people to bring their whole selves into this place and create community. So, what does awesomeness call us to do as individuals? How can you be more awesome? Nick Riggle, the author of On Being Awesome, a unified theory of how not to suck, sums it up. Being awesome requires us to think of and inspire others. It requires us to pay sympathetic, perceptive, and creative attention to people and situations. If you're living a life, developing a style, becoming the kind of person who aims to make people laugh, think, play, imagine, smile, care, strive, and empathize, then you are probably attuned to the ethics of awesomeness. Now, we've already created an awesome community here. You can see it in the physical space of this building, in the Wonder Wall, where we make clear that people's needs to be at home here, people's needs are a priority in this space. You can see it in that we live stream our services to draw the circle wide. You can see it in the way that we care for our children and our adults. Lifespan RE programming, a vibrant music and arts program. This is a place that has awesomeness pumping through its veins without having even thought of it as such. So I want to encourage us. Can we double down on this as individuals? Can you think about what it means for you to self? Can you find ways to share who you are with others that invites them to do the same? Can we bring a playful, creative, grateful, and perceptive attitude to our interactions with others, to our dreams for this community? Can we take these values out into the world, tell the haters they're not going to hold us back, and work to give everyone permission to figure out who they are and to be that without fear? How awesome would that be? Can you imagine what Atlanta might look like? What our church might look like? What your daily interactions might look like? Every person, each one of us knowing in our bones that we are as beautiful and inspiring as a kingfisher at sunset, as the sound of a bell tolling in the distance, that we are all lovely in limbs and in eyes not our own. It is a deep joy to me that such a world is beyond my limited imagination, because it requires everyone's imagination together to build that world. And I can't wait to find out where we're headed.